All right, at this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Tyrone for June 11th. Ask for an approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. On to approval of minutes. First off, approval of minutes for the April 23rd, 2026 meeting. Have a motion.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 23rd, 2026.
Approve, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of the May 28th, 2026 meeting minutes. Motion.
Motion to approve minutes of the May 28th, 2026 meeting.
Approve, is there a second?
Second.
Questions, issues on those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item, public hearing. Public hearing in recommendation to the mayor and town council regarding a front yard setback variance from applicant Ashley Engler for the property address 541 Sonoya Road. Take it away.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just for context, again, I know y'all seen this at a previous meeting in a different format with regard to a preliminary plat. This is that plat again. This is Sonoya Road to the north, Maple Shade Drive to Sonoya Road's kind of to the west, Maple Shade Drive's kind of to the northeast. And so the purpose of the application today is a continuance of our business at our last meeting, and there will be a future meeting on this with town council who will make the final determination on the variance. So to go over all the items, the property address is 541 Sonoya Road, and the parcel number is 0736-001. The zoning is R12, residential 1,200 square foot minimum home size. And the surrounding zoning to the north is R18 and AR, which is agricultural. To the south is R12. To the east is R18, and to the west is R12 and AR. So similar zoning around. The property has a total acreage of 2.62 acres. So again, Maple Shade Drive here, Sonoya Road in the front. So the applicant submitted a petition for a variance affecting the single-family dwelling at the front of the property at 541 Sonoya Road. And the applicant is requesting a front building setback variance of approximately 24 feet from the 80-foot front setback required along Sonoya Road. And they have actually requested this in a meets and bounds. We had a discussion about that at the last, around the perimeter of the home. That recommendation to mayor and council as to whether or not the configuration goes in accord with the meets and bounds or just a simple setback variance is something that I'll kind of get into to describe both options. The variance is sought to enable a two-lot division of this 2.62 acre tract. On May 28th, you guys, Planning Commission, conditionally approved the preliminary plat dividing the property. And that approval was conditioned upon the removal of the existing accessory pole barn prior to the recording of the plat and the granting of a setback variance for the existing dwelling on Lot 1. So this variance is for Lot 1 of the proposed plat, not Lot 2. The plat may not be signed or recorded until both conditions are satisfied. So right now, the plat sits in a conditional approval status, but it cannot be legally recorded until these conditions are satisfied. And the town will not be able to sign or put signatures on that plat until that is done. The existing dwelling predates the town's R12 zoning and the increased setback applicable to minor thoroughfares. It is therefore a non-conforming structure, which is a legal status of the structure currently. Sonoya Road is classified as a minor thoroughfare, which requires an 80-foot front building setback in the R12 district as compared to a typical 55-foot setback. The dwelling sits approximately 56 feet from the road, which is an encroachment where we get that number of 24 feet into the required 80-foot setback. Because the proposed division would draw a new lot line around the existing dwelling, the structure's non-conforming front setback would become a prohibited encroachment on the newly created Lot 1 unless a variance is granted. The applicant proposes no expansion of the dwelling, and the preliminary plat carries a note prohibiting any future addition that would extend further into the 80-foot building line in any direction. I did mention this. There was a title search done by the surveyor of an older deed configuration in the rear, but a deed alone does not establish a lot of record for the town. There's no actual plat that records that, so the variance analysis is limited just to that existing front dwelling. So just so we know about that. In terms of the comp plan character area, the future development character area is estate residential, our low-density residential character area, and this variance request is still consistent with that character area. And so before I get into the ordinance compatibility assessment, which is in our ordinance, all of these standards are listed, I do want to just point out a note of the order of this. The reason why the plat is pursued first and the variance is pursued second is that if you enact a variance or you approve a variance on a particular piece of property, a lot of record, and that lot is subsequently altered, that variance does not run with the property. The variance is applied at a very specific point and place in time, at particular conditions that are applied to the property, particular configurations. So if the property is modified in a legal way after that variance does not run with the land because the land is no longer there. It's not the same piece of property, it's been altered. So the way that we've done this in this particular order is to have the proposed lot division first, the change that they want to make to the property first, and then apply the variance on that plat so that it can be recorded. So that's the reason that we've done that order, and I can explain that, and I'm sure Patrick can provide a little extra clarity on that too. But I'll go through the ordinance compatibility analysis first, and then if you have more questions on that, Patrick and I can try and answer that. So the first standard that is listed in our ordinance regarding variances, we look at each one of these 6 standards. The first is whether there are extraordinary, exceptional, or peculiar conditions pertaining to the piece of property which are not applicable to other, what they call land, structures, or buildings in the same district. So the parcel is in a regular shape, size, and topography and is similar to other properties in the R12 district, but the condition specific to this property is the existing dwelling, which does predate the current standards of the ordinance, and that's important. It sits inside that 80-foot setback as a minor thoroughfare, and the peculiarity is limited to the position of the existing structure relative to that setback rather than to the land itself. So it's a peculiar structure that predates the ordinance that kind of satisfies this because it talks about land, structure, building, things like that. So it's a peculiar structure that predates the ordinance.
Is that the entire lot, or is it just?
It just relates to the house is the peculiar
house.
condition. There is no other peculiar condition of the property as it pertains to our ordinance. It's just the configuration, where the home is located. Would the application of these regulations create a practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship? So the dwelling is non-conforming and lawfully predates the 80-foot thoroughfare setback that we have for R12. So that's the current configuration. It's non-conforming, but that's a legal status for the lot because this ordinance that we have, these ordinance provisions were enacted after that home was built. Strict application prevents the division of the tract without converting the dwelling to an illegal encroachment in the new lot, which the applicant identifies as a practical difficulty in using the surplus acreage for a second dwelling, which would otherwise be allowed for other properties that are of this size and this particular kind of configuration in R12 zoning. The difficulty results from the election to subdivide the property. Without the division, the dwelling retains its nonconforming status and does not need relief. So just so we're clear about that. We talked about that a little bit at our last meeting. The dwelling is not currently illegal. It is nonconforming. So that is a legal status of the dwelling. Relief, if granted, would not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare or impair the purpose and intent of the ordinance. The purpose of the front setback is to maintain separation between structures and the right-of-way and the roadway. The variance would recognize either a 20, well, I say here 23, I meant a 24-foot encroachment, or only the area of the footprint of the dwelling that has existed at this location, and would authorize no new construction near the right-of-way. The preliminary plat note prohibiting any further encroachment does preserve the purpose of that regulation, as well as if the variance is granted only to that meets and bounds area of the home. Relief within this context is not expected to be injurious to the neighborhood or to public welfare. A literal interpretation of the chapter would deprive the applicant of rights that others in the same district are afforded. Other R12 owners with similar acreage may divide their property to create an additional conforming lot. If this home were situated further back, they would do this without any variance procedure. A literal application here would deny this owner that ability solely because of the pre-existing position of the dwelling relative to that setback. If relief is not granted, the owner does not lose the right to occupy or maintain the existing dwelling, but they just don't have, they're not able to take advantage of the rights as afforded to them by the amount of acreage that they have, where other people would be able to do that. These special conditions and circumstances are not a result of any actions of the applicant. So the position of the dwelling and the thoroughfare classification of Sonoya Road do predate the current ownership of the home and were not created by the applicant. The circumstance requiring relief is triggered by the applicant's request to divide the property. The underlying condition is not self-created. The event needing variance is the proposed division. And number 6, the granting of the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege denied by other land structures or buildings in the same district. So does it give them something unique that other people don't have that have R12 and have a roughly 2.5 acre piece of property? So it's staff's determination that granting the variance would allow the existing dwelling within the required front setback on a newly created lot. A status other structures would ordinarily be required to satisfy through conformance. Limiting the variance to the existing footprint or via the recorded plat as a condition with no authorization for future encroachment confines the relief to what is absolutely necessary to recognize the existing structure and does avoid conferring development rights beyond those established. So basically, if somebody else has a property that's like this, along, let's just say they have a 2.5 acre tract on Sonoya Road with the 80-foot setback, they would not get any additional development rights that those other people would otherwise not have. So I know that's a long-winded report. I just wanted to make sure that we went through each one of those because in the town of Tyrone, we're very strict about variances. We don't get them often, which is good. That's kind of the way it should be. We should be looking at them when they're only, when they're, absolutely necessary. If the Planning Commission and Council wish to approve the variance, staff recommends the following conditions. Number 1, that the variance be limited to the existing footprint of the dwelling, described by the meets and bounds as requested by the applicant or via a recorded plat note so that no rights are conferred beyond those necessary to recognize the existing structure. Number 2, the variance should run only with the proposed lot 1 that is located in the plat and as configured on the, as configured on the plat. And number 3, the plat may not be signed or recorded until the variance is granted and the accessory pole barn is removed. That pole barn will need to be removed before it can be recorded. So those are staff's recommended conditions. I know I talked a long time. If you have any clarifying questions.
Thank you for that clear, concise, and, well, it could have taken a lot longer to explain all that than what you did. I think you did a very good job at it.
Yeah.
Okay. At this point, this is a public hearing, so the next order of business is we will open up the floor for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this change to please come forward, and if you haven't filled out the information form on who you are and whatnot, please do that before you leave tonight. And then when we finish with that portion of the public hearing, we'll close it and open it for anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the change. So we'll start with anyone who would like to speak in favor of this change. Please come forward, state your name, address. Let's hear from you.
Hi, I'm Ashley Dickey, but I'm Ashley Engler on the form. Yes, yes. I live at 517 Snowy Road in Tyrone, so just a couple houses down from 541. My husband and sister-in-law co-own 541 Snowy Road. So we're just wanting to try and split the lot so that we can kind of all live close together like family, because pretty much the houses consecutively beside each other are all family. So it's the sister-in-law and then a uncle and then a niece, and then our parents live a couple houses, and it's just family down that road. So we just want to all raise our families together. So that's why we're wanting to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this change? Then I'll close that portion of the public hearing and now open the portion of the public hearing for anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this change. Please come forward. Come forward, sir. You've not filled out a form for speaking. Make sure you do that before you leave tonight.
Oh,
There
okay.
should be a form right there on the
Okay, I'm
podium.
sorry.
Take one with you.
My name is Terry Sudruth. I live on 140 Maple Shade Drive, which is probably front and center for this whole thing. And my question is, how will the lot be accessed once it's divided?
We'll address that. We'll address
Oh,
that
I'm
again
sorry.
as we go to commission comments.
Well, that's our big
That's your
concern,
question.
is it can't be, hopefully, it's not going to be accessed on Maple Shade Road. So the only other way I see it is some kind of shared driveway onto Sonoy Road.
Okay,
That's my concern.
thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition to this change? Okay, seeing none, I'll close that portion of the public hearing and now open the public hearing for commission comments, questions, or issues.
Philip, can you address that?
The lot was brought before you, the plat was brought before you all at your last planning commission meeting with access shown on Sonoya Road. So it won't actually be a shared driveway, but this is what we call a flag lot. We don't typically like flag lots, particularly if they're gonna have multiple flag lots, stacked behind one another. But ultimately, this is gonna be one access point. We allow lots to have, to share an easement through one other additional lot. This is a little better than an easement because it's actual property ownership. It's the minimum width that we require for an easement, which is 20 feet. And so they would actually have access here. If the existing owners here wished to overlay an easement at some other point across the property to access it in another location, they could, but from Sonoya Road only. But this is going to be accessed from Sonoya Road. In fact, it can't access Maple Shade Drive because Maple Shade has what we'd call basically like a little reserve strip piece of property landscape buffer that's owned by the HOA that runs the full length of Maple Shade Drive as it's contiguous with this property. So no access could happen from Maple Shade Drive unless the HOA granted easement for that purpose. But access is going to come right off of Sonoya Road.
Okay. That question. Other commission comments or questions or issues?
Phil? Chair, I think she,
I'm afraid we're past that point.
Mr. Chair, I have a, Philip, can you go back to staff recommendations, please? And specifically, item number, I think it was 4, I believe.
I have three there.
No, well, let's go back up to the,
Oh, here.
yeah,
Interpretation of the right.
interpretation. Okay. And I know Patrick has explained this, but just so I'm comfortable again, conforming versus non-conforming, the legal description that you talked about.
Well, when we refer to nonconformance, and when the zoning ordinance refers to nonconformance, it means a structure, a lot, or a condition that existed before our regulations were put into place, which means that it's allowed to continue. There are limits to that. It can't be expanded or enlarged without certain approvals. But for example, in this case, we've got a structure that was built before the setback was put in place. So it's allowed to continue like that indefinitely. But they can't expand the structure further into or they can't expand it they really can't expand the structure at all because of that nonconformance. They would have to get approval from the town first. Once you make any change to that piece of property, that nonconformance becomes an illegality. Because now we've made a change, and that change makes that structure illegal. So that's why they're going through this process.
It triggers it to need to be ordinance as it's written now. So their grandfathering status.
As long as you're not doing anything to change anything, you can continue with the house the way it is.
So is that stipulation held under the variance, under the
Yeah.
plat?
Yeah, that's my next question.
When they want to subdivide the property, that's the action that's causing everything to be reset, basically. Currently, they have a nonconformance,
Right.
but once they subdivide that property, that nonconformance is no longer applicable because they've made a change to the way the property is situated.
Okay, let's say we move forward and future changes are made to the front structure. Can future changes be made to the front structure without meeting the setback
So
ordinance?
potentially, what the variance process does is change the structure from basically conforming, or in this circumstance, illegal, conforming, because we've created a very particular, and council will vote on the variance, we've created a very particular, essentially, rule change that makes the structure conforming. Council has deemed, would have.
Okay.
If there was a change made to that structure, it would have to be limited, if, let's just say they wanted to expand it.
Right.
The variance that we grant, if the variance is granted just around they could expand that building to the back, but it just can't expand beyond.
Okay.
And I will say, typically with variances, we don't see the line drawn around the structure that way. It's usually just a straight line across the property.
In this instance, across the front.
Right.
That is an option available to you as recommendation, council, for approval, just a simple reduction of the setback.
And that would mean that they could do anything within that, let me rephrase that. They would be able to do anything that's in that structure that they could without having to worry about the reduction in the setback. So if they wanted to expand the house at the front, as long as they were still abiding by that, by whatever the variance number is, they would be able to do that.
So they can expand to the side
Yes.
from the front or to the back. They just can't push it farther forward towards the road.
Well, I guess my concern would be, the ordinance is there for a reason. And that's what I would hope we'd want to maintain. We don't know what the future may hold. So if changes are made, we would want the opportunity of somehow this structure would eventually come into conformance with that setback. I don't know what we need to do as a recommendation or a ruling but that's something that I would like to see so that we can stay in step with what the ordinance
The
is.
ordinance.
If future
Yeah.
changes are made to that structure.
And I just want to clarify another difference that we're talking about here is the difference between a nonconformance and a variance. A nonconformance is just a condition that's out there that we've not approved. It's just, that's the way it is. And we have hundreds of those probably in the town. In this case, a variance would be the town recognizing, yes, you can continue to do this. So it kind of moves beyond being just a condition that we have to deal with to now it's something that we have approved within certain limits. So that's the difference between a variance and a nonconformance.
And the other owners around, you said the others, could you go to the Sonoya Road? The plat.
Okay, because I can pull up an aerial image as well. So, yeah, directly next door is, what Ms. Sticky was saying, is family, I believe, that lives directly next door. And to the kind of the northeast is this reserve buffer strip for Maple Shade, and then Maple Shade Drive, the roadway there. And then across the street is, there's nothing there currently. Strip of property that's there. And I'll note that the purpose of our ordinance from a front yard setback variance perspective, the 55 feet is established to create uniformity within residential roads. So it allows for large front yards. It kind of sets the standard for particularly like 1 acre lots or, larger lots to create uniformity. It also has somewhat to do with the design speed of the road, things like that. There is road noise associated with residential streets that can get up to about 35 miles an hour. So a setback kind of preserves or it reduces the impact of road noise. This is a minor thoroughfare. That setback is increased because road noise is louder. The clear zone for the property or for the roadway in terms of the recovery zone for vehicles if they depart the roadway is larger. And so that setback along larger roads is there not necessarily from a uniformity perspective or to reduce impacts to other neighbors, because a side yard setback or a rear yard setback is in place to kind of keep separation between neighbors and preserve privacy between neighbors. Those are kind of the purposes of side and rear yard setbacks. The front yard setback is to kind of preserve the own individual's, impacts of the roadway. And so in this circumstance, the front yard encroachment would not really be impacting the privacy of other neighbors, but it would be kind of encroaching or have a slight encroachment associated with the fact that the roadway is louder and the recovery zone for vehicles on that road is larger. I'll note that the speed limit here for a thoroughfare is slower than other thoroughfares. Thoroughfares can have speed limits up to 60 miles an hour, or minor thoroughfares, 55 miles an hour. At this location, it's around 40 or 45. So that recovery zone is not necessarily as big as a 60 mile an hour design speed road, but it's just maybe a little bit of background on the purpose for those types of setbacks in different contexts.
For comparison, say Sonoya Road was, instead of a minor thoroughfare, was just another residential street. What is the setback of a
It'd be
residential
55
street?
and they'd be
55.
conforming. Yeah. And I'll also note that a lot of this has to do with road noise specifically, because for other districts, commercial districts as an example, for C2, C1, the front yard setback along thoroughfares for C2 is 50 feet. So that keeps in conformity with what they're anticipating in terms of a clear zone of the road. But of course, commercial is not as bothered by road noise, so it's allowed to be closer. So just keeping that in mind, the practicality of it is mostly about reducing the impacts of the road on the resident and occupant of the property, more so than perhaps the safety aspect associated with the clear zone of the recovery zone of a roadway in this particular context.
I'll just make a comment. I, for one, am usually very opposed to variances. Up a can of worms normally. However, I'm also aware of situations that predate laws that come into effect after the occurrence. And so I recognize that there are circumstances that uniquely qualify for variance issues. That being said, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve request with the conditions that were stated. 3 conditions listed at the bottom of the form. Yes, those 3 conditions right there. Do you want me to reread them? Is that necessary?
I think if you've just got staff's conditions listed,
Yes,
then I
staff's
think it's
conditions.
probably sufficient.
Okay, so I'm making that motion to approve in this case. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions, or issues?
One question, Mr. Chairman. The front line of the property, as Patrick mentioned, that's what staff's recommendation here is, rather than just around the property itself, or am I correct?
So my first condition there was that this actually be limited either by meets and bounds, so the variance only be applied per the meets and bounds description on the plat, which outlines the perimeter of the building, or that it be approved as a line setback, but that there be a condition on the plat that stipulates that no construction could occur, beyond that line.
So what we're voting on is either or?
Do we
Yes, in
need to
terms of your recommendation to council, you would recommend you would recommend an action to council.
So we need to specify maybe more so than the condition there.
Oh, that's a very good.
Yeah, I think there probably should be an amendment to the motion.
Okay, I will make an amendment to the motion to be the straight line across.
If that's your.
That would be my preference and recommendation if because if somewhere in the future, their family grew and they wanted to expand the house, expanding it to the rear would not cause, as from what I understand, any issues with setbacks or buffers, size of the increase, which our current ordinance protects from. So my preference would be just the front line limit, nothing to go farther forward.
So a 24-foot encroachment into that would bring the front yard setback from 80 feet to 26 feet. I mean, sorry, to
24.
56 feet.
50, yeah, okay.
So that's the amendment I would like to propose to the motion.
I agree. I'd second that, yes.
Okay. So again, questions, comments, further issues? We have a motion and a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries. Moving on to the next item, new business. I don't see anything there.
Sir.
No new business. Staff comments.
Just that at the next town council meeting next week, council will be approving our final steering committee selection for the comprehensive plan. So Jeff will be serving in representation of Planning Commission. But like I said before, I'll be bringing updates and things to each of you at meetings. Kind of almost be like a second steering committee in a way.
All right.
That's going to be happening next week on the 18th.
How many members were selected?
I believe we have, I think we added one additional, so we have 13. It was going to be a grand total of 15 individuals, but I think we're going to have 16 or 17. We wanted to make sure that we got good representation from around the town. After we got all of our applicants and we sifted through and looked at things, we realized we didn't have applicants from certain geographic areas of the town. And we wanted to make sure that there was inclusion of enough members to represent each of the, at least broader kind of geographic areas of the town. So we added.
Commission comments.
Congratulations on the post office. You
Thank
weren't
you. You beat
lying
me
this
to it.
time.
It wasn't me, but I'm glad it happened.
It's nice to have a post office.
Yes, it is.
I want to thank you for the tour of the East Group facility. That is impressive. That's impressive over there. Obviously, they've spent quite a bit of money to make sure it's up to certain standards for the town and for the community. It may not look like that now from just seeing big buildings, but that's impressive facility over there.
Done a good job, and we just hosted a Atlanta Regional Committee or Commission meeting here the other day. We had about we had quite a few people. We probably had close to 60 to 70 people from around the region that are either planning directors or city managers from just all around the Atlanta region. The Atlanta Regional Commission has these what we call land use coordinating committees. And after that meeting, I had some representatives from ARC come through and tour Town Hall. A lot of them had not seen the back part of Town Hall since it was built. Some of the ARC representatives commented on, especially us having an environmental specialist position and how rare that is for a city of our size. They as an example, City of Fayetteville contracts that out, and they're much larger. They were very impressed by that. They knew that meant we took a lot of our development standards very seriously, the administration of what we call our MS4 program very seriously, and they're very impressed by that. So I think that's very good that we have that. We're able to.
I think you'll be pleased with the water filtration
Can't
things.
wait to see it.
That is impressive to me. That water filtration process, the way it will work over there. I'll let you see it, 'cause I don't think
Well, frankly, and I've told Philip this, that was my project for years now, to have something like that. Now I want to go see it.
Yeah.
Sorry I missed it, but I was on vacation. But if that's what I think it is, I want that to be an example for upcoming developments.
Yeah.
To go see that, and that's what we want.
If you want to see us doing it, not just for a large developer, but a small one, we had a roughly 1 acre piece of property off of Powers Court. I think it's Auto Works property. There's a small bioretention area in front of their property as well. So
Yeah.
we've been able to have that implemented on small properties and larger properties
Yeah.
too. So they have theirs just sitting right out front.
it looks very nice in front of their building. JB Auto Works over there.
Yes, yeah.
So compliments to that. The town should be very pleased with the upscale type of tenants that will be in that facility. I think the residents will be very, very pleased.
Anything has changed on that, Philip? Any update, or it's still?
I really
it's
haven't
still up in the
gotten,
air?
I haven't gotten much more on that.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.